Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world right now. It's 2020, a happy new year, and welcome back to Social Confoes. We're in 2022, actually, Diego. How does it feel?
It feels actually the same. It doesn't feel like we took a break last week as we closed out the year, but yeah, it feels like the same, just a weekly routine, just with another denominator added to the announcements 2022. So, welcome to the first
2022.
episode, actually, episode 51. It will be easier to number now.
It
Uh,
will be, right?
yeah. All
So,
right.
what are we going to do today?
Yeah, so I think we're gonna kick off 2022 with, I don't want to say a bang, but usually people start off the year with, a different mindset about the New Year's resolutions. And we actually have someone here who's all about mindset, who's all about positivity, who's all about improving, yourself. And we have to, not tonight, yeah, tonight for her, in the afternoon for us, with us, Rheyna Wijsman. And I've known Rheyna actually since, how long has it been now? 15 years. We've actually been in high school together and we played volleyball together uh, at the Pre Athenaeum and Lisex. So that's where I know her from. And shortly after that, I think she went to study abroad, came back, worked at some local corporates here. Also did some projects together with her, uh, and now she's back in the Netherlands, pursuing a professional career as a corporate recruiter. She'll tell us all about that in a jiffy. And she also had I guess, a platform called Equals Positivity. Back in the day, I think it's 6, 7 years ago now. That's when I uh, reconnected with her again, where she, allowed millennials, especially, a platform to share their struggles, share their wins to others, so to encourage, inspire them. And she kind of transformed that into, uh, I correct me if I'm wrong later, Reyna, from fearful to phenomenal, a different platform on coaching and mindset. So, Reyna, without further ado, welcome to Social Confoes. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. What a nice intro. And you're completely correct. Everything you said.
Awesome.
I find it really funny that basically we went to the same high school, but I've never like met you guys before, like the work environment. So I find that very very interesting. But that's how you guys make me feel old right now, even though I'm not really that old. But Reina, so I think first of all you put on a very nice shirt. For those listening to the recording won't be able to see it, but people watching it live or watching it on YouTube will be able to view it. So could you share with us what the shirt is that you just pulled aside?
Yeah. I just ran just to take it. This is my one of the merchandise items I sell for from fearful to phenomenal. I've been using this quote, "Let positivity be your engine," for quite a while now, since actually my previous platform equals positivity. And I thought at first I wanted to wear it in one of in a music video that I was gonna be featured in. It was a positive kind of song, and I thought, okay, let me wear it. And then after that, I went to a place with some friends, and someone asked me, "Hey, where can I buy that shirt?" I was like, "You want to buy this? Okay." So now I'm actually also selling it, and also as part of like an affirmation, basically, to use, to find all kind of positivity, even in all kind of positive messages, even in negative situations. And in the front, you have the "From Fearful to Phenomenal," which is my platform now.
So,
So that's
hold
why
on.
I
So, a
did that.
music video. Tell us about this music video. How did Reyna end up in the music space?
Well, I always have creative people around me, and this is a music video from Ja Reflection, also Surinamese, actually a mixed kind of band, but I think it's mostly Surinamese people here in the Netherlands, and good friends of mine. And the song is called Jaja Uma, which means like, um, yeah, how to translate that in proper English? Like a real woman, a strong woman, yeah, authentic woman. I don't know how to best translate it, but yeah. So I was asked to be in that video. Not, I said featured, but I mean like just in the video clip. I'm not singing or anything, with my daughter, and yeah, that's how it went.
So I want to, of course, jump straight into the topics that we want to talk about. You already said it. There's a lot of positivity. We need positivity a lot right now in the world, and
Yeah.
and the thing that's is keeping me occupied a lot, and something that you've come across as well, is we struggle sometimes with differences between generations and way things are approached, whether it's from a business perspective or from a personal perspective. Of course, there's a lot of diversity within a generation, but I do
Yeah.
notice that there are different generations. And you specifically mentioned focusing a lot on millennials and helping to inspire millennials. So what have you found like is different between like the millennial a kind of generation and other generations?
Um, Mostly that we are. I say we because I'm also a millennial. Mostly because we are very um, much chasing certain kind of goals, big goals. Um, we do not need all the steadiness. And then when I say steadiness, I mean, for example, being at one employer for like 20 plus years. When we look at our parents or maybe even grandparents who have been receiving some kind of appreciation pin or some kind of symbol for working there for years, we're like, what? We're even younger than how long you have been working there. So we're really a generation that tries to make a difference, and but also in between, because of course we have our parents who say no, but be careful, but then we have our own mind like, no, but we're gonna do it different. um but we do have the guts though, and we do have um the how you say that, the internet, all the tools basically that are being reached out to us to actually make that difference, although we're kind of in between those thoughts sometimes. Um, that mostly, I think.
So just for a reference to the listeners, because I often, yeah, I assume many people wonder, are they a millennial? Are they considered Gen Z? Are they considered a boomer? So just for this frame of reference, that when we're using the term millennial, what kind of demographics are we looking at? You already gave some characteristics, etc. But what would you consider who would you consider a millennial?
I'm quickly looking up the what you say, how you say that, the
Yeah,
year
I'm
of
doing
birth.
I'm doing the same thing. So we have the boomers. Boomers are kind of like born straight after the Second World War, from 1945 up until the early mid 60s, and then you have the Gen X. That's basically the generation that kind of now has to control the world, and they're the full responsible ones. And those were born like 65 up till 1980. And then basically
Mhm.
the millennials, the Gen Y starts around late 70s, early 80s, up until the, I think, 2000s, or even now
Right,
maybe 90 late 90s. And then the Gen Z, that's kind of the 96 to 2010 generation. That's kind of the generation that when they grew up, the internet was already there in some shape or
right.
form. Yeah.
So yeah, now that we have a reference, how would you say, because you mentioned parenting, you mentioned, career wise, um, they're switching from jobs every now, every year, every 2 years, every 6 months even. And how has, in your opinion, like that change shifted in generations? Is it because of environment, access to the internet? What do you feel like impacted that change from a mindset, a psychological perspective the most?
That's a really, really a good question. The first thing that pops up is reflection, because I mean, from a young age, you look at your parents and say, "Hey, I want to be just like my dad or like my mom, who is a dentist or a teacher." Um, but I think with our generation, that switched a little bit, because as you're growing up, maybe you see like, for example, what kind of good example can I give? That maybe you learn that it's actually more about having uh, a stable financial status, or there's some goal behind it, and then you realize, okay, but that goal can also be reached when I want to pursue this kind of dream or this kind of career. I think we're being exposed more with reflection, and with the possibilities that everything that we want to do is is just possible. The opportunities, I was gonna say. Um, so I think mostly reflection, and really trying to stay close to ourselves. I think our parents, and this is just like something in general. I'm not saying every parent is like that, but I think maybe also our parents have learned that they shouldn't push things upon us, like how maybe their parents pushed a company onto them, or a certain kind of career choice. I think they kind of got less strict with us than how our parents were. And this goes again generations after, because I'm even also different than towards my daughter than how my parents were to me. So every generation, you learn something. And I think we were either lucky enough to see certain things. So I'm really talking so general. I'm sorry if I'm being very vague, but
No, no, I actually want to jump in, Diego. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
I just wanted to bring up the comment. Saf says, I think we have become more self aware, and she's greeting us from Stockholm.
oh,
So
nice.
Yeah.
glad to have you on here, that we can accommodate to your time zone.
Yeah, because most of saying guys, your guys are early. I'm still at the office.
Office.
So so
Otherwise, we're
what I
gonna be too late.
yeah.
Mhm.
So what I really because sometimes like there's also part saying and that's the reason I wanted to send you a video earlier on the false narrative or the false promise that in some sense like yes, you can do everything you want and you can do everything you set your mind to. I think that's very, very much the mindset of a lot of millennials. But on the other side, it takes some effort. Like it's not for free. It's like it's not like, oh, I can do this and I can do whatever I want in the world and I get it
Right.
handed to me. And I think the millennials are like the first generation that really hit the brick wall on that, thinking like, okay, my parents told me I can do anything in the world, and they actually figured out like, wait, if
Not
I just
easy.
go there and I say like, give me it on a silver platter, it's like bam. No, you're not getting it without doing anything. So do you feel
Right.
like some people in our generation are not necessarily tricked, but kind of follow the false narrative of saying like, okay, yeah, I can achieve anything, and then actually not being aware enough to realize and starting out with something and completely falling flat on their face?
Yeah, I think, and that's also why I said in the beginning that maybe we're in between, because we're being exposed to certain things in the media, and especially social media. And on the other hand, we have the history, so to say, of, we need steadiness, we need to go to follow this and that path. But then we have ourselves, whereby we need to make a choice. Um, so I think it's really up to us as a person to find things out, to research, because we have enough resources. We really have enough resources, and we just have to form our own reality, our own opinion, and then take action. And also, what I see a lot with my coachees is, really taking action, because if you keep doing research but you're not doing it, then you're not going to figure out what you're capable of. You could be a good researcher, but you got to take action too in order to come closer to your goal or get closer to your goals. So, yeah, if it's a false narrative, it's up to us, honestly.
I do think that I guess that false narrative gets reinforced by the technology and social media that we have now. Because if you look at the trends, the 25, 30-year olds to 35-year olds, if you look at the content creators, the self-made millionaires, posting on Instagram, posting on YouTube, posting on Twitter, that kind of paints an image for uh, the rest of society, the rest of the communities, that okay, if they can do it, we can also do it. But what often gets left behind in that glamour is all the hard work, or sometimes it's luck, but there's a lot of hard work and consistency that builds up over what 5, 10 years before they reach that success. And people don't see that, they just get exposed to the end goal. And I
Right.
think that reinforces the thought of entitlement, that yeah, and that instant gratification, we want it now. So how would you
Mhm.
say would be, you being a mother now, the uh, a decent way to approach that, to not have people be so entitled and be more, yeah, reflective, as you said.
I think also research the path that people have been walking. And I mean, even you on your platform here, Social Confoes, you're talking to people who are still on their way towards some kind of legacy. And um, that's why I also started my podcast to share journeys of people who are just around us, not per se at the top yet, because then you realize, like, hey, I'm not the only one struggling to achieve this and that. So I think it's really doing the research also on how people got there, because there are enough documentaries, for example, also to learn how they got there, how they were actually first tumbling down, doing maybe a whole kind of, were maybe in a whole other kind of business before they actually did what they wanted to do. I think it was last week when I saw that KFC, he started his business when he was, what was it, 67 or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, those things. I mean, it's nice to see those things and to realize that you will have to go through certain kind of battlefields maybe to get to where you want to go. Research, make a choice, take steps.
So I think it's also the idea that you have to figure it out immediately. Like it's
Mhm.
thing. But then again, you also mentioned that our generation is kind of the generation that they want something different every now and then. So how do you feel like, and especially as in the future, and also from a corporate perspective, and finding the right fit for companies, um, how realistic is it now? Like, to give you a little bit of context, one of the biggest issues that we have in Suriname at the moment is finding the right people for certain kind of jobs, especially certain kind of management positions, where it's already difficult in all of the world because we see people like all the time deciding to quit working at a job because they have had some online success or whatever. And then on top of that, you have like an economy where like people are saying less, wait, if I can actually, if I'm good enough to get a job in the US or Europe for a certain pay grade, and I have to stay in Suriname and I only get like a fourth of that, and I'm still in the position to switch, maybe I should switch now. And I can completely not blame him. So all of a sudden you have this situation where like good companies are looking for like top level employees, but they can't find them. And with the also the amount of millennials saying like, hey, I want to do a career switch, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, are companies in trouble in that sense?
um, I don't think they're in trouble. I think they have to. re-strategize in terms of if we keep looking for people to stay within a company for 20 plus years, you can basically close the doors because these generations and the generations that are following after us, they're not going to stay too long. So I would say to re-strategize and see, how can we stimulate actually their growth because their growth, the employees, their growth is our growth as well. If the people are satisfied in our company, then maybe they stay a bit longer, and a bit longer could be like a year. That's a yay for the employer, yeah, employer. But also, you really contributed to somebody's growth, and at the same time to your company's growth. Um, I think that, and maybe also to find other ways to make it more comfortable for employees. Sorry. So things like how we're now forced to work at home. I don't know how it is now in Suriname, but you cannot go back to saying, okay, 5 weeks at the office. So how are you going to make it more comfortable and make it more fun also? Focusing on that point and focusing on, what is the English word for it? Is it work pleasure or that's it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
What I
it's work pressure. Yeah, it's work pressure. Also, kind of the expected output, like from a mental and physical perspective, working 60 hours a week. Those kind of
Mhm.
like that's important. It's important to be there. And
Yeah,
no, it's definitely difficult. Yeah.
definitely. And also the trust. I mean, I know it needs to be built. It takes time, but the more you focus on those things, you realize that you get employees who actually want to work with you.
I wanna go into, so you have filled corporate positions, you have uh, worked with people, help them uh, choose their path, and now you're a professional recruiter in etc. If you look at the different positions you've had and in the different companies, corporations you've worked and also are recruiting for, uh, from an employer's perspective, how have these corporations shifted in their mindset or policies on profit maximization versus value maximization for their employees?
I'm gonna be really honest with you that in that, how you say that, from that point of view, I was gonna say this year, but I only recently last year started as a corporate recruiter because I thought it was more in line with where I want to go. But in terms of the switch, I'm not sure how they actually did that. But what I see now from different employers is that here, at least, they really focus on making the employees as happy as they can be with different, um, not per se tools, but like working from home, putting the emphasis on those kind of things, focusing on like you can follow any kind of trainings. Um, yeah, so basically what I said to focus on that, that they did that. I don't know if
So
they.
it's I do have to ask this now. I'm stuttering a little bit because I mean you also I mean with your platforms, especially Eco Positivity, you've blogged as well, but you've spoken to people from the Caribbean, from the US, from Europe.
Mhm.
So and I love Jennifer saying like retention strategy, but I do have to ask like are retention strategies more important in Western countries? Like, is it like, listen, we have so many opportunities. We're just gonna leave, and you have to do something to keep us here. Versus developing countries, is that something that's different? Or are you saying like, no, basically, all the countries in the world are struggling with this problem of keeping your employees because if they are not satisfied, they just leave.
Yeah, yeah. I think indeed, if we get a better offer somewhere else, yeah, you cannot really how you say that, you cannot really hold on to people just like that. I mean, everybody has a choice. Um, I think, but that's really me thinking because I'm not long enough in the business of recruitment. But indeed, I've been working in different countries over the world. Um, I experienced that here in let's say in the USA and but maybe more in the Netherlands. They just really focus on, in general from the get go on your you as a person, um, and maybe also with a distance though because that's just the culture. um, but like like the personal development part, they are training. They really have different platforms that are now basically standard. um, but yeah, I think it's something from here. I think.
Okay, so then let's flip it a bit from a employee standpoint, and also from a mindset standpoint. Let's talk a little bit more about the journey of equals positivity and transforming that platform uh, in what it is today. So you started out, trying to give people a platform to express themselves, to share their stories. And you've interviewed a lot of people with their stories. And
Mhm.
let's reflect back. If you look back when you started out, are there any stories in particular that stand out that gave you an eye-opening moment and that kind of impacted you personally as well as you continued your journey as a millennial in your career?
It might sound cliche, but I think all the stories that I have posted on equals positivity and that I hear now as a coach, they're eye opening because it seems like, okay, I'm talking to real people now. I'm not talking to people on social media who have these perfect posts and maybe sometimes a little struggle. And then they're like, okay, I'm good again. The first thing that came up was a story of Aram Goethart. He is a pilot. Is it a pilot in English? Aircraft. And I mean, it was a little boy's dream. And all of a sudden, a lot of, investments, and then you cannot get a job as a pilot. So he went everywhere in the world, so to say, to find the job, just to find the job. And that actually, and he was still in the process when I interviewed him then. And now I don't know exactly today what he's doing, but I know he is a pilot in Europe and sometimes Asia, I believe. And to me, it was really like you have to be consistent and you have to just keep going and find different solutions. And that was exactly what I wanted to um, share with equals positivity. Like, first of all, you're not the only one. You might have a whole other journey. You might want to pursue a whole other dream, but it's really a matter of finding in a whole other country maybe to see how you can achieve it. And in every story, I just hear that again. It's not something overnight. And really, what you were talking about, Jean-Luc, that we might think that because we see it on social media, we see the people having more and more followers because they're already there. But there's also me, for example, I have what 800 followers. I'm not there yet, but I'm doing it. And so we have a whole lot of other people right around us who we can learn from.
And it's also
Definitely.
entertainment. It's also entertainment value and why people follow you. Like it's and this is like there's the story of an Instagram model, an Instagram influencer who had over 1 million subscribers, and she couldn't sell like what was it, 52 T-shirts or even less. So it's also kind of this gravitating towards what is important for you. And I think most of millennials, we as millennials, we kind of get lost. We figure it out eventually, but we get trapped into these new shiny objects that are like, hey, that's new, that's interesting. Where probably the generations before us were like, listen, this is fake, this is a scam. We're not even gonna go into it. And then I think the next generation are like, there's so many like bright shiny objects that they really could get lost. But then again, they're better equipped because they grew up in the time of the internet, whereas most millennials, and I think towards the end of the millennial generation it's a little less, but especially the millennials that are from the 80s, especially early 80s, we really still experience the pre-internet life. And I do feel, and that's why I want to talk a little bit more about the positivity, is that you can get trapped. Like, it's so polarizing now at the moment that it's often at a certain point discussions go into a narrative where one wants to give their opinion about something and also wants to convince another person, like, but I believe this and you should too. And because this polarizing world of two different opinions, where one group says like, but this is the truth, and the other group says like, this is the truth. And like, I really want for people that are listening in and find this sounding slightly familiar because their experiences this. So how do you turn that into positivity? How do you, when you're in a situation where either you yourself or somebody close to you really goes so deep into a rabbit hole that you're like, yeah, but that's not for me. Like, how do you turn it into something positive?
Mm, I think it comes back to the same thing what I said earlier, when it comes to research, like actually basically cleaning up your following list, who you're following, because obviously you get drawn into it because you have your news feed, and however they designed everything is just drowning you in it all. So basically going back to the drawing board to see like, okay, what do I actually want to see? Is it draining me? Go back to what you feel about it, how you feel about it. And believe me, I experienced this too because um I'm actually a very I want to say so many things at the same time. Sorry. I'm actually a very social media kind of person. But at some point, I was just like, wait, this is what am I doing? Why am I posting everything? Why am I sharing so much? Or, so really go back to you. Like, what do you feel? Is it true what you're posting? Is it true what you're seeing? Do you feel like it's true? Because everybody has their own truth. Um, and yeah, do your own research when it comes to trying to chase your goals or trying to form your own opinion. Don't go about the opinions of what people said on social media. I'm so done with that. I'm really living in my own kind of bubble right now, so to say. And on one hand, it could be very bad because when I come amongst people and they talk about certain things that happen on social media, I'm just like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. But on the other hand, I'm just focused on the things that feed me and that I can feed.
We'll talk about that bubble in a second, but I want to
Yeah.
circle back to, so you've mentioned research several times now, and I'm
Hmm.
curious to know, how does Reina what do research? If you're stuck with something, what's the first thing you do? Obviously, if it's a traditional problem or a tech problem, you go to Google, do some research. But if it's something more personal, more introspective, what's the first
Hmm.
step you do? Do you go to a coach? Do you go to a circle of friends? What what
Why
what
can't
what
it be
what
why can't it be
resources?
Google, Diego? Why can't it be Google?
No, it can be, but I'm just asking Reina, what's her go-to
I'm gonna
resource to start
I'm
off?
gonna pick I'm gonna pick up something. Sorry for the sound if you hear it, but that's gonna showcase the first thing that I do because I'm kind of a thinker and a doer. So I first go within to see, okay, why am I so confused in my head about all these things, right? All the information. I'm gonna take a specific kind of example, a house. I live here in the Netherlands now for 2 years, and the market is really tight, and I refuse to believe that I was not gonna find a house soon. So I was just like, okay, I need to find it. And then there's also the option, of course, to buy housing, but I was so scared to buy houses So I had to go within, like, okay, why are you scared to buy a house? I mean, you don't want to be in debt and whatnot. But then I started to write things down. I want to see if I have that one here. I don't think I have that one here to show, but I'll just show you something
Those are some big
that makes
pages.
sense. Yeah, big pages. So I just try to write down in the middle, like, okay, this is the topic that I'm thinking about, and then to force myself to do research because, like I said, I'm a thinker and a doer, so I actually want to take action, but of course you have to do your research first. So I write it down in the middle, and then I Google, I talk to people, like in this case from the houses, I spoke to different kind of people, friends, maybe even because I was so desperate to find a house because I had to move, that I anyone who I came across, so to say, who was talking about housing, I was just saying like, okay, yeah, I'm also trying to find a house, and I'm also thinking about buying, and and then you get certain kind of information, and that information is handy. Sometimes you get a contact person, and I also then write those things down. All the information I get from people from the internet, I just write it down to research further or to form my opinion or to actually take action, because it's you can get overwhelmed of all the information, but when you write it down, you can read it back and you be like, okay, not this, not that, okay, yes, that. You can start to take decisions and take steps, and then you also know, okay, um for example, I had to know about, or I had to research more about, what's the name in English, hypotheca, um
Mortgages.
mortgages. Yes, I had to research more about that, like, okay, how much do I have to earn? um Knowledge is power, so you have to write it down to actually memorize it and to actually make a decision. So then also, when you write it down, what further to research. So this is one of the things I do, and just research anywhere, contact persons, family, friends, and if I'm frustrated about it, I have a really uplifting circle. The people I was hanging out with, Diego at Athenaeum, they're still my sisters. Um, and I just call them to have a shoulder to cry on, or I go to them if it's really frustrating. Um, my boyfriend, my parents, anyone.
So
Yeah.
we do have to ask the question then, because you've mentioned a couple of times you're kind of a social media person, but at a certain point you were like, this is not it. And I think everybody kind of in our generation has had that with Facebook. If you haven't had that, I don't know what. So talking a little bit about the bubble life, and I wanted to leave this question for the overrated, underrated, but I still want to go deeply into a little bit more deeply into it, because do you feel like the interaction, the social media, the gossip on social media is kind of the modern day pop culture? Can you compare it to something like that? But where pop culture used to be just for the rich and famous, now it's for everybody.
Yeah, it could be very much possible. I don't know how it was then, but I feel like it's going to a next levels every time. Memes coming up in a negative way, and yeah, it's not even fun anymore to me, honestly.
So how's life like in a bubble? What are kind of, because we've dabbled a bit with it, saying like, okay, we're gonna go off social media for a month, and then you're not, and that's completely different to one of the things you're doing. You're just saying like, okay, these kind of platforms just don't work for me. I'm gonna keep off them. What are the advantages that we need to consider when saying like, okay, we're gonna live in a bubble?
Um, First of all, it's really however you wanna uh, design your own bubble, so to say. And at first, it's like you have to get used to it, to not have the urge to post things or have to go and check. I mean, there's a phase to actually uh, get rid of that feeling, that urge. Um, but it really comes back to staying true to yourself and staying close to yourself. the things that you actually want to achieve. Like, for example, for me, it's um, it's that I really want to have that connection with people. I want to share stories from other people who are on a journey. Um, and then I'm just figuring out, like, okay, where do I share it? How do I share it? Do I then, if I want to share that, right? Do I then have to share certain things that are not in line with that? Or, um, yeah, it's really defining for yourself um, what you're actually trying to achieve on social media. If you're also doing research on social media, then follow people who are actually providing you um, with that information. And if you see that you get irritated from specific kind of memes that are only talking about toxic relationships, it's not gonna feed you to actually get the loving relationship that you want, if for example, right? So yeah, just clean up everything here inside, go back to what do you actually want to um what do you actually want to share, and what do you want to see on your news feed, because it's gonna push you all kind of information in any kind of form. You cannot stop it. I understand that. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm really only there for my Facebook page. But obviously, I get news ads and whatsoever on my news feed. But I'm just not watching it anymore.
Speaking of all the negativity, toxicity, and I want to connect this to, we've talked about positivity a lot in the beginning, but there's also such a thing as toxic positivity. And at what point, in your opinion, or what are some signs would you say that people should look or identify that something becomes borderline, or becomes some kind of toxic positivity that it starts, eating away at you instead of fueling you?
And with toxic positivity is meant like when it's too much, or
Yeah,
when it's
so
making
people
you feel.
encouraging you in a certain way, but it looks from the surface level like it's, encouraging, positive, but if you dig deeper, there's no like value or, you know um, depth to it, and it's just a never-ending loop.
Yeah, I think that's a feeling, a gut feeling. I mean, if it's you can feel when something is actually motivating you, inspiring you to take action, and when it's not, when it's doing the opposite, then don't don't follow it anymore. When it's too overwhelming, it's okay to to say mute. I say that you can mute posts on our people on social media as well, and that's handy because sometimes it really helps. I also had it. It wasn't. I'm. I'm not really gonna say that it was. I say that positivity, toxicity. It was. I said it. Toxic. Toxic. Say it
To-
again.
Toxic. Now I'm fumbling over my word. Toxicity.
Yeah, I'm not really gonna say that it was that, but I just felt like there was a person in my timeline who was really doing well with nice designs and whatever on her page. But I felt like, oh, I have to do that too. But I don't know if it's related with that. But I just muted it for her for I think it was about 6 months, and it just made me feel better. Like, okay, you're doing okay. You're doing your best, and it's not always that you can go 100% for your posts if you're not paying somebody else to do it. So it's okay what you're doing. So it's really listening to yourself as well. It's not making up excuses or anything. Really staying true to yourself. Like, okay, what you're trying to achieve in your bubble, in your if you have a business or even just personal, if you want to share something or not. Don't feel forced. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful that you say that because I think we get caught up on sometimes even unintentionally, like you said, like there was something bothering you about the fact that
Yeah.
her designs were so good, and it makes you
Yeah.
feel peer pressure to having that similar feel. And I think that's also being push the narrative. And I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with. Diego, I was wondering if it's time for an overrated, underrated.
Yeah, let's go. And Anil just tuned in time. Happy New Year, Anil. Let's go for some
Happy
over under.
New Year.
So how this works, Reina, will each give you some topics. I think three each. Looking at the time, yeah, and you just give us your quick take if you think it's a overrated thing or an underrated thing, like people should pay more attention to it, or it's bad. And of course, you feel free to elaborate briefly on it, uh,
Okay.
especially if it's on a more controversial side. But we'll start very easy. You want to kick it off, Jean-Luc?
Sure, I want to jump into something that we touched upon a little bit today, but not really into depth. So, goal getting, like the concept of that you have to structure your life in ways that you have to get certain goals. Is that overrated or underrated?
You have to. What was the last sentence you said?
The
You have
goal
to.
getting, so that you really have to. There's this kind of movement that you set goals and you get them, and the sole purpose is to getting to your goals in life.
I think it's overrated. Because briefly, I think we don't have to wait, for example, for the beginning of the year to start setting our goals. I'm really all about set your goal whenever you need, like, all right, focus, evaluate every now and then, and just take one small step. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I have to start a business. No, you can also start with okay, I want to be more organized with my household. I want to fold my clothes every week instead of waiting until the next laundry batch. Those things can be also goals. And maintaining your health, for example, not per se have to lose 10 kilos, so I think in that way it's overrated, and that's really also what I'm trying to get into the minds of my coaches and people around me.
All right. So speaking of coaches, you're also a NLP practitioner, and you'll probably give a biased answer, but having gone through the professional course of NLP and everything, would you say NLP is overrated or underrated?
Mm.
It would be weird for
It
her
could
to say
also go.
overrated, though, Diego.
I'm gonna say overrated because um I hear it I hear it often, but when I did it I was like, oh, so that's what I was doing already, and maybe I'm unique or something like that, but anyone can do it, and it could be very simple. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would still say overrated.
Okay, I think it makes sense if you compare it to like something like certification, like companies for certification, for companies that are actually already taking all the steps that are part of the certification process. I feel like in that sense, I can imagine, but maybe to expand a little bit on NLP for those like me who are less familiar with it. Like, what's the main takeaway that you need to get from doing it?
Um, Mostly that NLP says it's neuro linguistic programming, by the way, and it's mostly that um, yeah, you could say that you could set your mind to things, anything that you like, that you can put a different definition to things, that you can step out of it, and that you mostly also everything that you say is also part of a truth. Um, when I say part of the truth, I mean just watch your words, like how you say things. If you use, for example, in a sentence, "I do not want a toxic relationship," say like, "I want a loving relationship." And the more you say that, the more you install it in your brain. So it's basically syncing everything, language and mindset.
Okay, so let's get into the second over or under. Um, Travel, overrated or underrated?
Mm, difficult, difficult. Overrated, or underrated. Um, Maybe underrated. Because we see big countries, but what about the smaller countries who, where you can see? a whole lot of things and experience things, and not only the beautiful places, but actually talking to people. Maybe in that way, underrated.
Aside from Suriname, is there a country you visited that you'd say it's highly underrated for the mainstream?
Martinique, I think Martinique is a very beautiful country. The people are so nice. Dancing, you could dance away the night away. Yeah, Martinique.
Noted.
I do have to ask a side question for that one. How good is your French?
C'est très bien.
Oh yeah, so does it matter if your French is not that good? Will you still have the same experience?
No, it doesn't matter. They're really friendly. They're trying to, or at least maybe it was with me, because I visited a friend there and she was with other friends, so maybe it was easy to mingle. But I think they're much friendlier than in France, so they try to speak English.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
nice.
Interesting. All right. For my second one, you talked about research, and I love the example you gave with the house. And when you mentioned that the chat's been going on with between Greg and stuff on depth. So, question to you: after you've done your research and everything, is depth or slash taking a loan overrated or underrated?
Mm, um, is it overrated or underrated? That it is overrated because it doesn't have to be as heavy on you because it's an investment. And if that's also an option, why run away from it in this, in terms of a mortgage then? Or do you mean debts in general?
Yeah. So, in the context of your mortgage, buying a house, would you say
Then
it's
it's underrated.
underrated?
Yeah.
But in general, you'd say it's overrated. But for this specific case, if I'm understanding you correctly, that's why I'm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if it's debts in general, you have to figure out first, like, do I really need to make that debt or not? If
Do
you're
you
gonna
feel
wait too long.
there is a difference, a societal difference between the rich and the poor on how debt is viewed? Like as in for rich people, debt is kind of an investment, and for
Yeah.
poor people, it's kind of debt is kind of a way to consume.
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. I would agree on it because the richer you get, I mean, the more debts, the more bills to pay. I mean, it might not be debts in terms of buying clothes, because those are the debts maybe poor
Those
people
are
would make.
consumable debts.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
right. But in terms
Okay.
of investments, if it would bring you further, then it's a good thing, and
That's
I think that's a rich people's
a
right
rich people's
mindset.
mindset. Okay. Interesting. To get into rich people mindset, my final
Mhm.
overrated, underrated is New Year's resolutions.
Overrated gewoon. Echt overrated. I say gewoon, but really overrated. Like I said, don't wait until January to say, okay, this year I'm going to do this and that. This thing I'm doing all year. I did it for I did it end of the year for this year, but that's just because I achieved most things that I had going on the last time. But I actually made last year. I made, I think, three of these things for yeah, this year, or for the no, not for the year, for the period. So definitely overrated. Just do it for the period of time and make it doable for yourself. With small steps. Don't make a whole long list. Just a few things that you can focus on, because focus is the main thing to make you feel good too. You want to have fun while doing it. It's not a must. It's like having fun while doing it.
Okay. Got it. Then last one for me would be we talked about being in a bubble, and you've been working home from since you've been in the Netherlands. So virtual meetup spaces, are they overrated or underrated?
Mm, regularly rated, how you say that? properly
Properly
rated.
rated. That's also a
Yeah,
fair point. Yeah.
I think definitely because yeah, we're doing it. It's very easy, accessible now for everybody everywhere. So I think properly.
So Diego, do you want to jump into Gregory's question there?
What is he? Oh, he wants to do an extra one. Well, we actually already answered this on depth, right? Yeah, I already asked this to. It was the second one. I
Yeah.
asked Reyna. So she said generally overrated, but for a mortgage specifically, it's
I think
underrated.
Gregory wants your opinion on it, Diego.
Our opinion. Um, so it's a personal thing. For me, it is overrated, but that's just just in general. That's just a personal standpoint I took from my personal finance journey at this point. That obviously I've done my research. Not all debt is bad, but my approach is to not go into unnecessary necessary debt. And if I can find an alternative to self-fund it, that would be my first course of action. Um, but that's why I say it's overrated, and that's just because of how the whole economic system is designed at this moment.
Yeah, so I want to rephrase it, and if we look, for me personally, it's overrated as well. What is underrated is different ways of getting funded. I think that's something that's really underrated. Like understanding where you can get money from if you have an idea, if you want to do something. But as having debt, uh yeah, I wouldn't, if I had the opportunity to choose whether to have debt or not, even from a rich person's mindset, saying like, if you invest, it's good. I'm like, yeah, but maybe I don't want it. Maybe I don't want to have that feeling that I still have for the next 20 years I have to pay debt. So I
It's
think
more of
it's,
But
a mental freedom for me.
yeah, yeah, something like that. So I would
yeah.
be very, how would I say it? I would be very hypocritical if to say debt is overrated, because I do in certain sense have debt, but personally I don't have any debt. I have debt in my life, but it's not that I chose it to have that debt. If I can
Yeah.
leave it at that.
But
So Rena,
that's
yeah.
really it too because in our
Yeah.
minds it's really like a debt is a bad thing, but it doesn't always have to be a bad thing if it comes to housing, for example. I really thought through like so many years. I'm not buying a house yet, but it's definitely on my list now because I really try to get rid of that thought of, you know, before I have that money to buy a house, yeah, then
You have to have a good you have to have a really good income not to
see,
not to build a house without having debt. I mean,
yeah, indeed.
that's that's really fun. So Reina, to close things off, I'm gonna steal Diego's question, which he usually asks our guests, is what can we expect from you? And we're not gonna say in 2020, because you just told it like it's not something you start the year with. But what can people expect from you in the near future? And also, how can people reach out to you if they want to connect?
Okay. Um, what they can expect is that I will keep focusing on people's mental health. I'll keep focusing on trying to help and motivate people in any way possible. I like to start new little things, and this time then from my platform, from Fearful to Phenomenal. So things like my podcast that I recently launched, whereby I share stories of people just being on their way to their goals. And I say that it's a mental software update. So when you tune in the podcast, it's really just taking the time for yourself and to get a moment of being inspired of any kind of story and related to your own journey that you're on. Um, yeah, things like that. You know, a podcast. I don't know what's next. I can't tell you, but it will definitely be related to mental health and being on journeys. You know, these things like giving you a reminder. If you wear this hoodie, then you can at least read it and say like, okay, I'm in this state of mind right now. Meditations, personalized meditations, I do as well to keep you focused on whatever your mind is set on in a positive way. Um, yeah, that's what I have for now. And then yeah, it could be anything like shows also. How you say that? Not shows. Hosting a program, for example, that has to do with mental health. And where people can find me, mostly on Instagram. I feel comfortable on Instagram now to share things and do lives and such things there. That's fearful to phenomenal, and the website www.fftp.nl.
Awesome. We shall add those in the show description as well, in the
Okay.
post. I do have to ask as we close this off, you can keep this very brief. How easy was it for you to start a podcast?
How easy? Well, like
Or
I said, I'm a
how
person who just
yeah.
it was actually easy. But I'm also a doer. I just jump into it, and when I see, oh, I need a mic, oh, I need this kind of program, then I do it as I go. I must say that I jumped into it with the microphone of this, actually my headset and my phone. And I was lucky enough. Last week was my birthday, and my friends, told you I have an uplifting group, right? They bought me this beautiful microphone that I can use now because I was struggling with the right sound. But I just you just take action and then you learn as you go. I mean, people grow with you as well.
Awesome. So just jump in, guys. And to
Yeah,
close
jump
it
in.
off, final comment from Romachel. He also says this show is underrated. Thank you for the rating.
I wanna quickly jump in because we're not the kind of people, and that's also one of the things when you start off with a show. Like, one of the things, are you gonna say like, "Will people subscribe to this channel?" and those kind of things? If you've made it so, if you're still watching, and the most people that are watching now are watching on YouTube. If you're still watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, come on, just subscribe. Just subscribe. And of course, subscribe to Diego's channel. Also, share it on social media if you like this episode. Share it with friends on WhatsApp or on Facebook or wherever you want to share it. And yeah, I did. If you want us
Really
to,
my
thanks for the
compliment.
support. But if you want us to really support, subscribe to Diego's channel. He has some awesome content on there. And don't forget to share it.
You can
I
also
really
subs-
like what you guys are doing. Sorry for interrupting. It's really I followed some of the previous episodes also because friends of mine were on it, and when I saw it I was like, wait, so on this channel, on that channel, I was like, okay, I see y'all doing it. And I mean, Chanduk, you're always doing videos for a long while now. Diego, you are also doing certain things with, I think it was filming, photography and such. So this combination, love up.
appreciate all the kind words, definitely. With that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in. And we will see you again next week on Social Confoes 52 in 2022.
Hey.
Reyna, thank you so much for being our guest. For everybody who tuned in, the comment section who had a life of its own, I think, this episode. Thanks for joining in. Diego, as always, it's been a pleasure. This was Social Confos. See you back here next week. Bye bye.
Bye.